Was the recent airline crash really caused by the changes to the FAA? Nope, this seems to be operator error for the helicopter. Likely they had eyes on the wrong aircraft. Terrible accident that should have been prevented, but unfortunately odds are someone will screw up eventually. ATC audio indicated tower warned the Army helicopter to avoid the airliner. The airliner was the priority traffic, and the helicopter was responsible for avoiding traffic. I suspect they were flying night vision goggles, and it was reported to be a training flight out of Fort Belvoir south of DC. My impression, former NVG Army pilot, is this was pilot error of the helicopter pilots. I have 25 years of experience as a controller. I heard the recording. The Black Hawk pilot blew it. That's all there is. Trump trying to blame the FAA controller once again shows he knows nothing. Unlikely. The investigation will give more through answers, but I'd be very surprised if it was anything other than pilot error on the part of the Black Hawk. They don't know what caused it yet. The black boxes are still being evaluated. No, the Aviation Security Advisory Committee that was disbanded reported to the TSA, not the FAA. The FAA head did quit, likely due to pressure from Elon Musk, but it's hardly the first time that has happened. It's not like an agency head quitting automatically causes things to fall apart, and so far there have been no other major changes to FAA operations. Nope, just an unfortunate accident. What FAA policy would allow a plane and a helicopter colliding? Unless you're saying they removed air traffic control or something. First, this is sounding very much like pilot error. Hard to fix that at a policy level. Assuming it were a more systemic problem. We had the opposite situation not that long ago, with some were quick to blame Buttigieg's management as Secretary of Transportation for Boeing running roughshod on FAA regulations. The FAA regulations generally change too slowly for a single administration to be at fault for systemic problems. I read somewhere it was the Black Hawk's fault and not the FAA. It's premature to blame the FAA or anybody for that matter. But if this had happened if Biden was still in power, Republicans would absolutely have blamed him for it. Probably not, but cutting back on the FAA isn't going to improve things. The only real answer is, they are going to investigate and find out what caused things to go wrong. No one will 100% know until they at least have some time to look into it. From there, you unfortunately also have to apply a few considerations. The FAA chief left force resigned on the 20th. They had just had a bunch of people in the FAA fired. Every single person who works for a job vital to keeping people alive in that manner will say that they don't let outside events affect them on the job, that they are above it. Sometimes that's true, and sometimes it's not, unless it's something blatant. Like, the guy who was supposed to be there was directly fired and replaced, which I'm going to call right now and say is an unlikely scenario. Most people are not going to be able to directly blame the recent firings. Does that mean they had no effect whatsoever? For that, you'll have to make up your own mind or decide that it's somewhat unknowable. I do think it's a relatively safe bet to say that firing a shitload of people in such a vital position of human safety in one fell swoop with less than even 1 week without very good and incontrovertible reasons to, is probably a risk we don't need to ever take. No. For those that say it's too recent, you have to ask yourselves, did you read talk about articles during the LA fires about the budget cuts to the LA Fire Department related to the fires? That was similar. A tiny budget cut to just one fire department that had just happened. Yet it was major headline news across tons of news sites. It had nothing to do with the SoCal fires at all, but that's not what the headlines would have you believe. I think this is the same situation. That cut just happened and has nothing to do with this one event. But just think about both things when you think about it. See if they both make the news equally, and if they don't, draw your own conclusions about why. 2 days? It's barely been 12 hours. It's going to come out that this was caused by the military doing their own thing and busting through the flight path of a passenger jet they were told was there. The president invoked Obama's name in the first couple minutes of the press conference and went on a tangent about the FAA recruiting mentally disabled people. Do you think anyone in an official position would be able to give an honest answer going forward? No. ATC asked the helicopter if they had visual on the CRJ, and after confirmation they asked them to go behind. Supposedly the military choppers crossing the traffic pattern at DCA has been an approved thing for quite some time. Makes my blood boil that 70 people died because a helicopter wanted to take an approved shortcut across a busy traffic pattern. Now is the time to see how our new government is functioning. There should be a review of all of these patterns across all airports to see if we need to stop this kind of BS. I just listened to Trump's presser. He started off as slightly empathetic and said mostly the right things until he finished his script. From there, he rambled and rambled, indicating that he was pretty sure he knew what happened, and then explained how under the Biden administration they sought to hire mentally disabled or psychologically disadvantaged people to run air traffic control. I think he was referring to the anti-discrimination policy on the FAA website, but presenting it as the job qualifications. He explained we need those with superior intellects in those positions, and that was not the case because of the Obama and Biden. Hours earlier, he implied it May was the helicopter pilot who may have been inept. Then he changed his talking points. I guess he decided the better political tact was to blame it all on DEI efforts, with his own people conducting the investigation. He'll present the blame as he sees fit.